Good afternoon, everyone. I, Ankit, on behalf of NEN and Vadvani Foundation, would like to invite you all for this webinar and also introduce our expert, Mr. KG Murali, MD, Focusssed Corporate Services Private Limited. He has been an entrepreneur for the last 15 years. He started a company which represents various banks and telecom companies across South India for their retail operations in 18 locations with team strength of over 500 people. Murali's varied interests include excellence in management, managing with a heart, management training. He has been a mentor for a few startups as well. His other passions include being involved in running a leprosy home in Coimbatore for the last 15 years, his involvement in NGO in Krishnagiri, which helps to provide nutritional food for 200 HIV affected infected children every month for the last 2 years. He has a network of friends supporting him on this, being a part of charity called Gift a Future, which pays for primary school education of economically backward children in private schools. Before I hand over the floor to Mr. Murali, a quick note to all our attendees. You will all be on mute. You may ask questions by typing in the panel provided. Our expert will answer the questions after his presentation. Over to you, Mr. Murali.
Good afternoon, everybody. I think a good introduction has been already provided, but I'd like to run you through on why I have been selected to handle this subject, how to find the right channel partners for your sales. My primary business after working for 15 years has been one of a channel partner for banks and telecom, and I represent roughly about 13 institutions across banking and telecom, and my enterprise is located across south of India, and we've seen the ups and downs of this, and primarily I would like to share what they really look for in a channel partner and how does a channel partner helps from a sales perspective. So with that, I will run through my presentation, and you can have your questions after that. This should roughly take about 20-25 minutes. Thanks for joining me. The brief is an inevitable part of any sales organization or channel partners. Traditionally, in the earlier period, most of the institutions had their own sales setup and had their own teams. And one of the first person to venture this out was the Citibank, who decided that they could have an extended arm outside to handle their sales. So I would say the concept of a channel partner from a banking perspective, and I think also from an overall industry perspective, Citibank was one of the primary organizations to move into a channel partner mode. It has been followed by a lot of other banks, and then followed by, after the telecom boom, by a lot of all the telecom companies. And in fact, I would say across telecom and banking, it is inevitable for them to function and to scale to the levels that they have reached without the help of a channel partner. Going a step further, channel partners don't do the sales bit alone. They do the collections, they do the base management. So there are a whole lot of services that the channel partners have evolved over a period of time. I think in the last 15 years or 20 years, this industry has really matured quite a lot. And be it any organization, whether even from manufacturing or FMCG, today there are a lot of discussions going on having such an extended arm called the channel partner. So telecom and banking could be, from a percentage perspective, the largest ones. But of late, we have ourselves started discussing with a lot of manufacturing consumer goods companies who are looking forward to such support system. And I would definitely vouch that the levels to which the banks or the institutions grow is phenomenal with the support of a channel partner. Literally, they get time off to attend to a lot of things, but the routine of running this bit of the sales or any extended activity becomes more meaningful with a channel partner. So with that brief, I'll proceed on how do these channel partners from a very broad perspective, how they help for a sales organization, or for that matter, any activity that you might think of. So while we look for a channel partner, what they look, or what I would look in case I was looking for, the profile of the channel partner plays a very critical role while they are being shortlisted to do such work. Primarily, a good educational background is considered very essential, because all these institutions are managed by fairly well-educated and experienced people. So they do not want to try this with every other person. So they primarily feel somebody with a good educational background will understand some of the functions and how to go about the project in a much better sense. The second point that I put on the profile is family background. Very critical again, because a channel partner once appointed is very, very critical that he is aligned with the style of working of an organization. So people coming from good family background, you don't need to worry on basic issues like integrity or presentability and all those things. So a good family background is very, very critical when you shortlist a channel partner, or you are being shortlisted as a channel partner. The third point that I have on the profile is the people interaction skills. This I would say is a point across activities, and very, very critical, because this is ultimately about managing a team and interacting with the primary institution. So people interaction skills has to be at its best for the man who's going to be a channel partner for an institution. These three are broad guidelines that I would say which one should bear in mind before appointing a channel partner for the activity. My second, industry background. Been 15 years, I've been a channel partner for banks. Very, very critical that a fair amount of industry background is very, very essential. Otherwise, the learning curves are a lot more and unnecessary. The principal who is appointing a channel partner will have to spend a lot more time in making the person understand the basic. I came from a non-banking finance background. So those kind of backgrounds, similarly, industry background or specifically from the industry, makes a lot of difference while you appoint a channel partner. And it takes a lot more time if you try, not that you don't succeed, but it takes a lot more time to get him off the ground. The second thing is, coming from the industry, the connection that the channel partner should carry with the fellow businessmen or fellow industry people is very, very essential. Because in today's world, the interactions between even within the competition is very critical. So a channel partner should not be confined to a particular institution. He should know a lot more about the industry, and this would emerge by his interaction with the fellow industry people. The third point is a member of associations. All the industries are governed by some association or the other. There are two objectives that are achieved. One is a lot more information keeps coming to you when you're part of an association. And two, there is a shared opinion on any conflicting situations. While I worked with the NBFC, these non-banking finance companies, Leasing Association of India and South India Hire Purchase Association were primary drivers or association drivers of the industry. So we could make a lot of representation when some law was being enacted which was not industry friendly. There could be a representation from a larger section. We could get to know, understand the laws much better, and some kind of broad guidelines could be drawn so that not much happens on the market by undercutting each other. So there are a lot of inherent advantage by being member of an association, and it follows my second point, that being in touch with fellow members of the industry. So these associations give you that forum, and you will also be seen and noticed. So any channel partner has to be necessarily part of such associations. Then he should be familiar with industry practice is one of the points that I have mentioned. Again, this complements the first point that I said, experience from the industry. Otherwise, once again, there would be a slip and a fall which may not be necessary at all. So he should know how that industry operates. For instance, in banking, collection is a process. Collection primarily from a common sense perspective, you walk down and do the collection. If somebody is not paying, you go meet him, ask him for the money. The industries may not be so. There are quite a lot of rules on how the collection has to happen. For instance, if it is an individual, what time we have to contact, what is the precaution that we need to take, what should be the talk off that we need to do. Now, these kind of practices are very familiar. If your channel partner is already familiar with industry practice, you don't need to brief him up on all those things. So it makes a lot of sense to pick somebody familiar with the industry practice. If you're of late, there are some FMCGs appointing channel partners to handle specific modern trade or segments specific. It is ideal that he understands how a distribution system works. Otherwise, by the time he understands how a collection process, how he delivers, how a rejection happens, how he collects the money, he will be tired and the principal may not have the patience to so it's better that it is definitely an edge up if you take somebody familiar with the industry practice. Financial status, extremely critical point. Any channel partner who's taken has to be fairly financially stable. It is a very, very general statement, but what it means that you or if you're appointing a channel partner or if you're being a channel partner, it's very critical that the state of affairs of finance are fairly in clean shape. It could be track record of IT returns filed, could be one point, and you could also check from his own bank references. You can normally we have seen that we are asked to submit 6 months bank statements. It basically shows the kind of volumes that we have done. Then adhering to statutory financial commitments, very, very critical. For instance, in the recent decade, we've had the service tax which has come up for the service industry in a big way. There has been a lot of flouting of rules on this, and when service tax comes to the hands of a channel partner, whether he remits that on time, there is a lot of gray area there. So basically, whether that person has a discipline to adhere to the statutory financial commitments, ESI, PF, and all that. So these three are primary indicators of how a channel partner discipline on the area of finances. It also gives you an indication on his capacity to invest for future growth. So while you're appointing a channel partner in year one, your plans can change over 2-3 years. He has to keep pace with your organization cannot get stifled by a limitation of a channel partner's strength to invest. So it's very critical that this capacity is there to a reasonable extent, whether he is able to manage that bit, raise funds needed, so that he keeps pace with you should not get stuck at the point for want of or he leans on to you back. That will be a very difficult situation, especially 2-3 years down the line. The last and the final point on this thing is that financial discipline in terms of paying salaries, vendors on time. Very, very critical for any organization. So be the case with channel partners also, that they have their track record of paying their commitments to the employees or the vendors on time throws a lot of light on the discipline of the promoter there. So very, very important while you're appointing a channel partner to understand whether these kind of disciplines are in play. Once you have reassured yourself before appointing him, it takes away a lot of headaches that can crop up at a later point. I've again titled experience. This also complements the other earlier point that I said about industry specific. General management experience is one of the primary points that I would say here. Industry specific, since I've talked, I'm not touching the point again. Whether he has had, even from a work experience, whether he's been in positions where he's had an overall perspective of how an organization works. It will help a lot as you go forward. because he is literally going to be another miniature of your primary unit. So this is what most of the banks have looked for in us after we've started growing, and generally they are capable of handling be it a finance area or be it a HR practice or be it employee motivation levels, retention techniques. So these general management experience are very critical when you appoint. You should ensure that the concerned channel partner has enough such experience. People management skills, very, very critical, mentioned briefly earlier also. He should be a great people management person. Any channel partner is primarily about forming another team and driving to achieve your end objective. So you should be excellent. People management skill takes care of your attrition, and hence very critical that the channel partner has a very, very strong base on people management skills. Principles represented earlier and present principles gives you a broad guideline of who have already chosen him and who have worked with him. It will give you a good idea of how a channel partner is already accepted in the market. Takes away a lot of check that you need to do, because primarily if already 5-6 institutions are working with him, it gives a fair introduction to the person about his capacity. Work experience, again mentioned earlier, the kind of background that he has had. Most of the channel partners are people who have worked, at least in the industry that I've been, are people who have worked and started on their own. So kind of work experience that they have gone through. Have they spent sufficient time? Have they held roles which are very critical? Have they taken this, is this been a well thought out decision? These all sort of show up very clearly when you see the profile of the channel partner. And this is what, again, I'm saying, what even if one were to become a channel partner, this is what I have seen most of the cases the institutions looking for. Process, extremely important from a sales perspective or from any extended arm perspective. Whether the business as it runs today has got laid down very good process. It not works on the gut level, and there are sufficient processes and systems in place in the organization. It would be good if you can spend a day or two understanding what they do right now, what are the processes they follow, and how good they are. Very critical. Adaptability to change to new process. Well, your organization, which is appointing a channel, would have new ideas about how it would work better for you or specific to your industry. Whether they are mentally adaptable to change to these new processes should also be tested. Once the channel partner can be very rigid about sticking to what he is doing. If the change indicated is convincingly good, he should be capable of accepting it and moving forward. Third thing is MS. What kind of information system generate from his organization, how it reaches the different levels of management, and what kind of decisions are taken based on this information system. Some of them could be related to a principal generated MIS. Some of them could be internally generated MIS. However, is there a process that is laid out which is fairly in place and good, should be checked. Ability to create effective systems in changing environment. A typical example is the banking industry. We have seen in the last 15 years, I have seen a sweeping change from where it started to where it peaked and to where it dropped. So each of these times or period, one needs to adapt, and you can't be stuck onto an older system of operation. So whether the organization has adapted itself well to and has got the ability to handle every situation as it comes in a changing environment is very critical, because as you appoint him, your industry could also go through such process, and we can't have people stuck with a process of an earlier time because he's familiar with it. So generally the process one explains how he operates and what he does, and his flexibility to adapt to your process. Very important. Team building, I've again highlighted this as one of the main point. Extremely difficult for a channel partner. A success of a channel partner is his team. I remember I started this about 15 years back, and I started with 5 people, and I was a first generation entrepreneur. So the learnings have been immense. What I'm sharing here is not at one shot I got it, but finally when I did figure it out, I found that there are some pointers that I can give to people who are starting up or are looking for channel partners. So team building is extremely critical. The primary indicator is tenure of his present team. That is, how has his attrition been? I mean, has he been changing teams too often? Has he got tenured team leaders, managers working in the system? That will fairly give an indication that the person has been able to hold the fort well. So attrition is a very, very important point. And in the channel partner that industry that I would say is a reasonably young industry. So if he has fairly been able to hold on to critical people for a longer time, it's a clear indicator that he's a good team builder. People skills again, having good people skills is what helps point 1 and 2, helps you control your attrition levels and keeps your team more tenured. Adhering to statutory norms I've again mentioned here because good people respect you or your organization based on how disciplined you have been in adhering to some of the payouts that you normally do to your team. You know, it's not being wiser, but whether there is an inbuilt discipline in doing that is very, very critical as part of a team building process. This capacity to build teams at short notice is one of the pointers that I put here. Very, very essential. Because, almost all the industries, some urgent assignments do crop up. Urgent scale-ups do happen. So whether he has the capacity or he has proven himself in earlier instances to being able to raise a team at short notice and sustain them. So I would say that clear classic examples of earlier history of the organization are indicators in this direction. Interpersonal skills, again being repeated and again being told how good he is, how well he is connected to his key players, and what responsibilities has he passed on, has he delegated well, is he sort of understanding, does he know his people well, are all very important. So team building as represented by various points is an absolute critical thing while we look for a channel partner for sales. Infrastructure, as you all know, is a very, very important point. The first thing is the present business or channel partner well equipped in terms of communication systems, office layout, presentability of workspace, facilities for staff, and in case this business, if it's an inbound customer coming set up, whether facilities for customers is good enough. Extremely important. You cannot have a small cubicle and fly-by-night operator kind of system doing here. The channel partner will have to be completely up to date in its systems, the support systems available, and it should be a very, very healthy working environment that he should provide. More so when you have customers walking into the setup. I'm particularly touching this because of some of the retail counters we run for telecom, which has walk-in customers. It's very essential that you're aligned with what the principal does. You can't have a compromised office setup. Image of the principal has to be borne in mind. So while you find a channel partner, very, very critical that you have to find that his infrastructure overall is in good place, specifically meets its requirement, or is he capable of scaling up to the levels that you want. It should be clearly understood. Such capital expenditure later on should not become a point of dispute. So it is we understand and go forward. Reference, absolutely important. I've classified this into 3 critical references: market, industry, and personal references. Business references has to be viewed a little more closely, not just one letter or so typically within the industry it is best to check about how this channel partner has worked. That typically happens for us also when people contact us. They check on what our background has been, how good our integrity levels have been, how is our team strength, what kind of capability we have to sell or collect, as the case may be. So business references, very, very important that you get this. Market industry feedback, again, both are connected. Industry specific people who are in the same industry. Market is generally around, I'm talking about bankers or others references play a very critical role. Personal references also I have mentioned as a point because it's critical to know the promoter. So it is better apart from the market and industry to get have a personal reference also check also done through whatever source that you consider appropriate to understand generally how stable the promoters are. Very, very critical. So I think I briefly run through how it works, and again to sum up what I am saying is that I have been a channel partner for about 15 years now. So we went up to about 1,000 people we used to manage across 18 locations. Because of the banking industry going through its own challenging times, our size dropped. So we have roughly about 500 people. But when I look back, I think these are the points that have primarily led the principal to look for a channel partner. And we find even today, though the banking is going through its own challenge, telecom came in. Telecom is off late has been going through its own challenge. I find even FMCGs coming and approaching us and figuring out a similar concept can be evolved for their kind of selling. I find other service related companies, startups who come and approach us and trying to make sense whether a concept called a channel partner can be used for sales, and many have started. It is an extended arm of your organization, and I would say it's a big win-win on both sides. If you have a channel partner for your sales primarily because that is the subject that I've been asked to talk on, or for even any extended activity that you do. I wish you all the best, and I'll await your questions on this. Thank you.
Let us now start with the Q&A session. Our first question is from Mr. Jaren Thomas. What are those initial steps to take to find the right channel partner in the new territory?
I am presuming that the question is about rural and urban. In a city, there will be much of a problem because the partners are primarily people who have been in the bank and telecom. There are quite a few of them. So a quick check. In fact, I get a lot of calls through the Yellow Pages references. I don't know how it got marked up. Somewhere there it has been listed. Talking to these principals, if you find your contact in banking or telecom, they'll be able to easily give you references on people who have already been with them for a longer time. So I think that is one easy way to locate your partners. And again, industry specific. I'm talking banking and telecom again because that's where I come from. But if you can, those are easy contact points that you can establish your thing. And today, even at Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, there are a lot of these people operating. I'm trying to think quickly of other than banking and telecom. In Tier 2 cities, I have seen these schools going into a franchise mode and finding partners. Like Euro Kids, they've been able to fairly locate. They go to the teaching community, figure out who's interested and what happened. So I think that is how you can pick up your contacts. And once you have a fairly about 10, 12 of them, you could talk to them and figure out whether they would fit a bill.
Our next question is from Mr. Hunad. How do first generation entrepreneurs rope in people into the team to build up a credible enough team?
Yeah. While it might look challenging on day one, as far as you're passionate about what you're doing and you're truthful about building up a team, you stay committed to the members who come in. The time could take a little longer, but I am a living example of how it worked. You know, even today, when I came from a working environment, I worked for 15 years outside. I had a set of people who moved in with me to work for me. Instead of me having worked with fairly large banners, they had worked with me, they understood my style, they felt that I would be committed to them. That's where it begins. And then it goes by word of mouth. But I think your confidence level should be in place completely. Believe that the team can be built. There is no, other than being 100% honest about your intentions, I would say there's nothing else that you need to worry about building up a team.
Next question is from Krishnang Makhija. How to find channel partners for an event management firm as a startup?
I would, this kind of new industry, I mean, I think you'll have to pick people. There are many people I find who are working in a similar industry, be it event management or garments, and people who are who got a business streak in them, and they want to move on further. So they are the kind of people that one should also keep in fold while you are trying to locate a channel partner. Is one. Then two is specific to event management. Who are the related people who do business, who are familiar with this business? You know, for them this is an add-on that will happen. You know, I go to place A, tell one I sell. You know, those kind of things. Let's say event management is as I understand, is a corporate is where one of the places where you would like to go and present yourself and say, for say somebody is already going to the corporate and doing a role play already on some other product or service. They are the ideal people also as the second set of people who could be appointed because they already have an entry at this corporate. They know the critical admin people, decision-making people for such activities. Then they should sold, I go back to my earlier answer that very critical that the passion that you carry, that should be passed on to these guys. They should know what is done and how it will be delivered. And once that is done, I think you're on. So I think you think like I'm just telling as it comes to my mind, but this is how you should look around. It cannot be told in 5 minutes, but I think if we spend some time understanding, okay, I want to meet X, so who are all the people connected to X, who would be interested in this, how is my margin looking? If these questions are answered, it becomes fairly easy to sell. And whenever you meet such people, please keep your level of confidence at extremely good levels, because that man not know much about your business. So there's a lot of patience with which you need to get him into your story. And then it becomes easier. You know, you don't need to sell, he would sell.
Next question is, what is the best revenue sharing model when dealing with a channel partner?
It would be industry specific. There is no percentage that you can say that a channel partner can put on a 10% margin or anything. So it depends primarily which industry you come from and margins you are making. And but understand his ROI as well. Whether he is making his money very critical. So before you do that, I think you should should be understood very well. You know, assuming his capex so much, his running costs are so much, his capacity to say month X, month 2 will be Y. So have a clear plan drawn out there, even if your margins are a little less than what could be an industry practice. As far as you're touching base within this, the, the participation or the number of people who join up to become a channel partner is fairly high. You know, I remember to refer again an example when I started with Citibank. I fairly didn't know how this margins are, because I was coming from a salary and I remember still the people who are my good friends, you know, people who have moved on in the bank and who have become fairly senior people. I mean, they would teach a lot of basics of how it works, you know, and then they would show you how it is. And when you reach that, you sort of feel good. Even later on, I find that HSBC or a Stanchart quoting higher than Citibank. My loyalty would with Citibank, primarily because they were honest about what they did with me. I think that is a selling point. And then, of course, it's very critical that as a principal, you have, you don't find that your channel partner is making your money and you're not making money. So that is a very subjective point. I think that you'll have to bear in mind, and then give something which sounds fair to a working man.
Our next question is from Mr. Chetan. What can be the sources for generating working capital while we are entering in the new business?
When you start a new business, there is not much of support available from the traditional banking, and definitely not. Your own funds generated by you from friends and family plays a very, very important role. One, they are the only set of people who fund you initially. Two, they come at a cheaper cost, I presume. So that I would say, because after you establish a track record as a first generation entrepreneur, only then can you go and approach. But in many cases, I have found the principals who appoint channel partners, if they're convinced about your capability to do work and deliver for them, they are funded in quite a lot of cases. In my case also, there were banks who were, though I was first time to them, and they funded me quite a lot. In fact, you can't rule it out at all. So that's your principal supporting you on this is also one of the areas. But initially, I think internal generation is the only mode that I have seen. As you go along, then the bank's working capital, ODs, and all those things come. But initially, for a period till you establish your track record, only your friends and families will sort of trust you on this.
Okay, our next question is from Mr. Sudesh Agarwal. I run a web and mobile app development company. I want to know what type of agreements or contracts has to be done with a channel partner.
The agreements are general in nature, but primarily some of the conditions that you need to be clear about is, I may not come in a particular order, but I'll tell you, the employee is hired by the channel partner. You know, primarily that is one reason why you go for a channel partner. So the statutory implications of that should not fall on the principal. So I think that is one area of way that has to be clearly defined on an agreement. That the agreement is between a channel partner company and you, and the employees or the related liabilities are that of a channel partner is one. Point two are the payment terms that you are getting into, and any penal clauses that are there should be discussed, and to the last bit should be documented. Don't leave anything to presumptions. So that is where normally misunderstandings do come. Penal clauses, I'm particularly saying not relating to non-performance, but for any integrity issue that might crop up at a later date. He is representing you in the market. So ensure that you're fairly well covered, that in the event of a judgment mistake that you make, the liability or anything legality pertaining to that doesn't fall on you. I think these two are one. Payment terms, I said. I think the other clauses are all general in nature, which covers the common law. You know, I think they can be found in all agreements. And maybe industry specific you need to work out, which you would know better what your industry processes are. Ensure that they're all put in the agreement and ensure that he reads it. It should not be a fine print that he says, I didn't read it later. For instance, banking, we handle collections for them. You know, everything is there in the agreement. You know, how we collect, what happens in the event of a problem, how is this cash that is collected or how it is handled, the procedure, everything is documented. You know, so they are very sure. I mean, this has happened over a period of time. When they make one mistake, then one more clause comes into the agreement in the next agreement. So I think industry specific, what is it that you think are fairly protected? Industry, you can ask them what kind of problems they've generally had. If you can document as much as possible, it is better, I would say. But I would say the top two that I said are primary things that you should bear in mind, especially the employee liability. You should be very clear that you document that clearly. That in the event he is not paying his DSIPF, there is, incidentally, I am a labor law lawyer, so maybe I have got a leaning to talk on that subject a little more than needed. But the principal also is responsible if the channel partner doesn't pay his statutory payments on ESI and PF. So most of the companies these days, what they do is if they have appointed a channel partner, they ensure that while the bill is being raised, proof is produced that the last month's PF list of employees, everything is submitted to the principal. And after due audit only, they release the payment. This, of course, they've started not in day one. Over years, I think a lot of people got into trouble and they did this.
Okay, we'll take last question for the day. It's by Mr. Thomas. What are the factors to be considered to build a team in a completely new area for my product, but with competition fierce?
In fact, if I could have a one-to-one, it would be better. But I'm presuming something in a completely new area to you or to the team. I'm not able to figure out. You are saying, suppose you come into banking and you don't have a banking experience. Very critical that if you do not carry that experience, that critical members of your team have that experience. It cannot be all of us together cannot be learning through the game. It takes hell of a lot of time than normal, and it can frustrate one completely off. So, in fact, I have seen people who have come with no experience background, working in some place for a year or two to gather knowledge, understand it better before they venture out on. Without being in a rush, I think that is important. And even when you don't have that experience and you're in a competing industry, your team members, you should ensure that those team members don't sort of take advantage of the fact that your knowledge or experience in that particular process is not good enough. It's quite a tricky thing. I mean, you can have a set of good guys who will deliver in spite of knowing more than what you know, or you could have the other side. I mean, it might go into their head that, look, I know this better than him, then why should I? It's a typical human conflict that happens. So it's better that you're experienced. I would say I am a reasonably safe player in spite of being an entrepreneur. So maybe because I've burnt quite energy on this, but it is better that you have your own experience and a fairly reasonably experienced team. Otherwise, it is wiser not to enter until you are sure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murali, for that interesting session. Thank you to all our attendees for participating in the webinar. We are glad that the questions kept coming. Please do send in your feedback and suggestions to us at eclub@nenglobal.org. Also, if you found the session interesting, feel free to blog or post about it. The recorded version of the webinar will be available on our website eclub.nenonline.org by tomorrow. Do join us for our next webinar on the things that entrepreneur needs to know before starting up. Expert Mr. Praveen Shekhar, Council Member at Isomar, Creator-in-Chief at Kriya, on 14th November from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Thank you once again and have a nice evening.
Thank you and have a wonderful day.